So the question was, what do I think about the bin Laden removal, and why would the American people believe that story after all the lies that we've been told? Is that pretty much okay? So again, it sounds kind of funny because for a tiny organization, we've covered almost all of these things. Again, we're the only ones. Right after that, we started writing pieces. You'll see my byline on a lot of them. Fortunately, as we're bringing on more people, my byline doesn't dominate quite so much. But one of the questions I asked right away was, I mean, of course, we had been told for years that, he was ill, he was dead, he had died years before, and so on. But what interested me, there were many facets of that story that interested me, but just on the surface, they said that there were 2 helicopters involved. One of them crashed, and everybody got out fine. I don't know, any of you were in the military, you probably know, when a helicopter crashes into a wall, I mean, everybody isn't fine. I mean, it's just, those are somewhat delicate crafts. I mean, any plane crashes into a wall, I mean, everybody isn't fine. So, they said everybody walked away from that. And I remember reading in an Indian newspaper, I think it was, they interviewed the next door neighbor who had been on his roof at the time, and he said that plane crashed, and they all died. Now,
we are not fools. It's America and the dirty American policies. Whenever they want to take control of an area, they act this way. Osama was never here.
What is it? And of course, if they crashed and they all died, what would have happened? I mean, Obama wouldn't have been reelected because Fox News would have been all over him forever. That's unacceptable. Look what happened to Jimmy Carter with the failed hostage thing, which there are questions about whether that was sabotaged. But do you remember about a month later, this was SEAL Team 6, and then about a month later, another group of SEALs, SEAL Team 6, about the same number, died in an unrelated thing. Their plane was shot down. Now, we never saw the names. I mean, could it be that the people who died in the original thing, that they made up the story later to cover up the fact that the whole thing had been a disaster? I don't know. But a good journalist ought to be looking into this stuff. Now, another thing that's strange is their rush to throw the body into the sea. I mean, that's just not standard operating procedure. I'll tell you something else. It's also not standard operating procedure. So when all your country does is chase and obsess about terrorists, to just kill the guy who has all the information instead of interrogating him. And they claimed, listen to this, they left it up to the SEALs to decide what to do with him. Now, do you believe that the Pentagon, the CIA, the president would say, yeah, you know what, take him out for an ice cream sundae, whatever you think is, I mean, it's astonishing. And the failure of these major news organizations, and again, your favorite alternative show, none of them asking a single question about any of this. Sponsored by Lockheed. Yeah, sure. Yeah. So just not to go on too much about this point, although this is one of my favorite ones, actually, because it's so ludicrous. A few months later, they interviewed Brennan. Why did they throw the body in the ocean? Remember, they originally said, do you remember the reason? Anybody remember? Why did they throw his body in the ocean? They didn't want the body to be honored. I mean, who cares? Well, first of all, what were they expecting? That stadiums were going to be filled? I mean, it's just insane. It doesn't, they don't care about that with anybody else. I mean, it's just absurd. Plus, you could have buried it in an unmarked grave somewhere. Nobody would have known. So that doesn't make any sense. And then they say, later they changed it. Oh, well, why did they throw it in the ocean? They changed it. See, they always change the story, and the media doesn't notice this stuff. But that's the story. They said, Brennan said, Brennan used to be the head of the CIA station in Saudi Arabia, where Osama bin Laden's family is to this day extremely influential. So he says, oh, yeah, we asked the Saudis what we should do with the body, and they said throw it in the sea. Oh, we just asked the Saudis, and that's what we do? I mean, it's insanity. There are dozens and dozens of things about this story that don't add up. Anything is possible. I mean, he could have already been dead. They could have faked this thing. The guy in that house might not have been him. If you look at the pictures, it doesn't look like him. This guy liked to watch porn. I really don't think Osama bin Laden watched porn. I mean, I may be wrong, but I don't think so. There was never any indication that he did. If you look at these two guys, have you seen the pictures? The nose, the ears look pretty different. Maybe his ears grew a lot in a few years. I don't know. I mean, my point is, these guys lie to us all the time. You know, it's like, you remember Charlie Brown and Peanuts, and Lucy says, I'm going to hold the ball and you come running up and kick it. And then he says, I'm not doing that, because last time I did, I go flying and I fall and I kill myself. And she goes, yeah, well, I'm not doing that anymore. I go, come on. And then he does it, and what happens? I mean, we got to turn to Charles Schultz for some wisdom about how to handle this stuff.